Hello and welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm so darn good. How are you?
Okay, I'm good. I'm good too. I know, I just thought I would start with a little chit chat.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's frightening me, but we're going to continue. All right, so tonight we are going to talk about government overreach, specifically overreach from the executive governors in light of COVID. We're not going COVID heavy, but we're just going to talk about the proper role of the executive branch across the nation and specifically in the state. And we've also got a couple of guests. So,
Yes, kind of looking forward to that.
yeah,
That'll
we're
be
going to
pretty
be covering
nifty
a lot
too.
of interesting stuff. social
One
justice,
remotely
for
and then
instance.
one in person, so
Yes.
that's pretty cool. All right.
All right, so let's talk about the overreach of the governors across the nation in what they were doing to enact policies, procedures, rules, restrictions, and so forth for COVID.
And honestly, it was glaring because where they had maybe done overreach before with maybe an executive order here or there, this was pervasive. So it was a lot more obvious than it had ever been before that there were people overreaching. Don't you agree? I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah.
seems like before, I remember thinking, oh, well, that's an overreach, but it was, individual and,
Right.
and small. This is
Well-
large scale.
And it came on the heels of a very, very strong presence in the media, a very fearful sort of approach, and so people sort of accepted it.
Right.
Because on top of the fear, there were so many unanswered questions, and it was we were hearing about mortality in the upper single digits, which would be a phenomenal, which would really be an emergency. Not that COVID didn't turn out to be a serious disease, it absolutely is, and it certainly affects a lot of people, especially the elderly, immunocompromised.
Correct.
However, the overall mortality, the overall effect was really just a fraction of what we were anticipating.
Right.
But the reaction, the government reaction, was not just a fraction.
It was exponential.
It was every bit what could have been necessary had the disease been 10 times worse.
Right.
I mean, you would think that we're under martial law or that there was an invasion from a foreign army with things like, curfews, stay at home, shelter in place orders. I mean, it really, really went too far. Now in North Dakota, we didn't go that far, but I think that we went far too far considering when COVID hit us, and we already had so many more answers than what they had when it was first hitting on the East Coast.
Correct.
We also have a populace which is much less inclined to accept mandates and that type of thing. So what we did get was still business closures, still curfews, still mask mandates. So we got so much more. We've covered all that. But the question is, what is the proper role?
That, I was just going to have you suggest that maybe we could talk about the branches. In the state of North Dakota, there's the executive branch, and it's much like the United States, is it not? With the judicial branch,
Absolutely.
and then the executive branch, but then, of course, the legislative branch, and that is the ultimate, as far as I'm concerned. The ultimate is always the legislature because they're the closest to the people. That's the way it was set up.
Absolutely. So, right, the legislative branch it makes all the laws. And what happens, it happens on the federal level and on the state level. You have agencies which are under the executive branch, and you have executive orders, rules by agency, executive orders, and in effect what happens is then you have legislation created, faux legislation or fiat legislation created by the executive branch. And then that just went on steroids when it came for COVID. So the idea is that there are emergencies that come up. There are wartime emergencies and natural disasters.
Right.
Those are the two biggies. And then there may be something, and it turns out COVID happened to be that may be something in between, where essentially all of the states, including the federal government, have given the ability for the executive to take immediate control and do what's necessary to get us transitioned, to mobilize agencies to do something on a very temporary, very transitional
And
nature.
that is the key word there, is on a temporary basis.
Right.
When you have a natural disaster, for instance, when we had, in 2011, we had a flood and we had to move quickly and we had to do things. That was on a temporary basis. It wasn't like it was going to be 10 months of action. And I remember people mobilizing, and I thought that went pretty well, actually. People did what they needed to do. The executive orders were to, we're going to have National Guard in here. I mean, we had a really good communication system at that time, I thought, in the state of North Dakota. But Then you come to this, and
Right. So now we're running at 10 months. I think in the next 2 days, we're going to be at 10 months of having a state of emergency.
right.
And that's just far too long, because you have a legislature that can work hand in hand with the governor to determine what's necessary to continue carrying out the operations, whatever those operations may need to be, for COVID. In North Dakota, and in many states, in fact, a governor can continue the executive order, the state of emergency, for as long as they want. They can continue to extend it until the governor decides that he or she wants to end it, or until the legislature passes a resolution. It just takes both houses with a simple majority.
That's it.
The governor can't even veto it.
Wow,
So
really?
yeah, it's just a simple majority, and then the state of emergency is over. Now, some states, and this is what North Dakota is looking at, because I think most of the legislators and most of the citizens are not comfortable with the governor being able to have a state of emergency with these excessive powers
Right.
perpetually, forever.
Definitely.
So you're looking at Alaska, for instance. If it's beyond 30 days, the legislature has to okay it. In Washington, D.C., it's 15 days before the commission can approve an extension by the mayor. Iowa, it requires that if the legislature must okay it, and if they're not in session, that it would be their legislative council, which would be like our legislative management. Kansas, greater than 15 days. Montana, 45 days. South Carolina, 15 days. Utah, Washington, 30 days. Wisconsin, 60 days. So all of these states require that, okay, governor, there may be something that we weren't expecting. You may need to do something, mobilize, get everything organized, but it's very time limited before the legislature comes in. North Dakota doesn't have that.
Okay.
No. So in 2021, North Dakota, along with nearly every other state, is looking at reining in these types of things. California, so this is 2021 legislation that's kind of on the docket.
Okay.
No idea if it's going to pass in these various states or not, but California would require a legislature to come in after 60 days. Indiana would require a legislature to come in after 30 days. Now, Indiana has another one, which I'm particularly fond of and which I plan to introduce in the state legislature in North Dakota, that all entities, business entities, must be treated in a uniform manner.
Oh, I love that
Yes.
idea. That is so
Yeah.
fair.
This whole idea that the mom and pop shops get closed down and the big box gets to stay open.
Wow.
Or that you can, various, however you go to your eateries, it has to be across the board. If there's a
Wonderful.
if there's a reason that businesses need to be shut down, for instance,
All
because
or
of social
nothing?
distance, it's all or nothing.
Oh, I love that.
So that's
that
excellent.
Sounds so good.
Kentucky, Maine, Minnesota is 30 days. New York, 45 days. Texas is going to, Virginia, everyone. So what we're getting at is in North Dakota, we are going to have, there are actually already 2 bills in. One in the Senate that would require the legislature after 30 days. One in the House that would require the legislature after 60 days. The one in the House is going to get changed substantially, and they both may get changed substantially, but I think for the better, because I think people are recognizing, and it doesn't even have to do with personalities or friction with Governor Burgum.
Not at all.
This, I believe, could have been any of our
Yep.
preceding 5, 6 governors.
It's just
And
government overreach. It's just, yeah.
Right. We're just, for the first time in the history of the state, we're recognizing that there could be a situation which allegedly a governor has reason to think that it's reasonable to continue the state of emergency forever. And so recognizing that, now we're pulling it back in. I would expect it'll have a good chance of passing. I would certainly hope so. I think it has a better chance in the House, and then it'll go to the Senate, but we'll see what they have to say.
How do you gauge the public on that one? How do you feel that the public feels about that?
Well,
Is there any way to know? I mean, really, because
COVID is an amazing thing to exemplify the differences in the train of thought between people who lean to the right versus people who lean to the
Right.
left. People who lean to the left believe that it's government's job and
take
it's our
care of
elected
us.
officials' job to do what's necessary to
Right.
take care of us.
Right.
They are going to be much more likely to say, hey, you know what, just let's allow the governor to have power. Whereas people who lean right would say, that's not right. There checks and balances, law and order are things of the right.
liberty and freedom.
Yes, and so I think that the grassroots, certainly the right grassroots, are going to be very much in favor of pulling the reins in on what the governor is able to do. We'll cross our fingers. Another reason for you folks to contact your legislators
And you know
yet
how.
again.
So
Right.
All right. All right. When we come back, our next segment, we are going to be talking to somebody on a similar sort of thing, government
Very
overreach
much,
and
yeah.
legislative response as well. Join us in just a moment.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is changing to Cozy TV on January 18th. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. Well, we have been talking about government overreach, specifically with states of emergency and executive orders. And we honed in on that, bringing it back to North Dakota. Now we have with us a guest who knows quite a bit about it.
I do love having guests on here. Thank you very much for being with us today. David Chapman is with us, attorney at DJ Chapman Law, and we are excited to have you with us tonight. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so to start off, let me just ask if you could just give us a little of your background, a little bit about your law background, and tell us a little bit about yourself, David.
Sure. My background in terms of where I was educated, I went to the University of North Dakota. That's where I got my law degree. And then I've had my own private practice since 2001. Prior to that, I spent about a year with Daimler Chrysler, one of their subsidiaries here in town, Global Electric Motor Cars, as their in-house counsel. And prior to that was in private practice. My practice covers a varied number of areas. Mainly it's been federal law over the last 23 years that I've been involved in, both with immigration, some criminal defense, and of course highway safety as well when I was with Daimler.
Excellent, excellent, very good. So you've had lots of state stuff and also national things at the same time.
Correct.
What are your thoughts with the topic of the seemingly perpetual state of emergency declared by the governor and the executive orders therein? I know that you've got an opinion. I know that you've been involved with that. So let's go there.
Right. I think my bottom line is that he has way overstepped the bounds of the statute that gives him the right to declare a state of emergency and to basically cut through red tape to handle that state of emergency. He has stepped over the bounds into what we would consider a non-delegable legislative duty. He has suspended regulations and has put in place new regulations on businesses that limit their number of hours, limit the number of people they can have in their business. And essentially what he's done is he has stepped into the shoes of the legislature. And it is up to the legislature to determine what policy will be and to determine what legal principles will apply. They can delegate a certain amount of jobs and a certain amount of work to the executive branch, but that work involves merely determining what facts and conditions apply in a particular situation to which the policy applies that the legislature has put in place. And what I see here as a big problem is he is basically exercising unfettered power, and he is not in a position where he is operating under any real clear guidelines that the legislature's enacted. And I think the biggest problem comes from his background with corporate executive.
Absolutely.
Corporate executives sort of see themselves as the king of their own fiefdom. And I think that's what he sees himself here. He doesn't really want to work with a bunch of legislators to try and get the proper policy in place.
Right. Now, as I understand it, I'm reading in Century Code 37-171-06, and it does say he can suspend regulations. But suspending regulations, as I think you alluded to, is entirely different than supplanting them with his own regulations of whatever he wants. That's the legislature.
Correct, yes. And when the legislature makes laws and the executive implements them, they make the regulations to implement the laws that the legislature's enacted. But those regulations are put in place under normal situations. And there's a certain amount of, I guess you could call it red tape. And if you have a situation which requires immediate attention, then the real power that comes from that statute is the power to suspend those regulations, to cut through the red tape, and to make sure that he addresses the emergency that North Dakotans face at that time. It's not envisioned to allow him to put in place what is now close to a year's worth of, martial law, essentially, where he's the guy making all the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the health officer, the state health officer, can force businesses to close, but they have to go through every district court, I believe, to whatever the legal actions are, to ask the judge to allow for closure of the businesses. There's nothing in state law that says the governor can just close down select businesses. Am I correct?
That's correct. What he's essentially done is he has repealed the portion of the statute which the state health officer must abide by, and the state health officer is part of the executive branch. So the governor heads the executive branch.
Yeah.
The statute that says that the state health officer has to go to the district court to have particular businesses shut down if there's a need. I do not think that the people that put in place this statute envisioned that the state health officer would be able to, delegate back to the governor or allow the governor to simply say, you're all going to close at such and such an hour of the day without using the district court process. That district court process is there because we have constitutional right to due process of law. And what the governor has done is basically eliminate due process in this case. It is exactly the same as what he's done with the quarantine for close contacts, where you get a call from somebody saying, or an email saying you must quarantine for a period of time because you may be a close contact. Well, they're supposed to let people know that they have a right to a hearing. And so far, I've heard absolutely nothing about that statewide.
I was
Yeah.
just going to ask that question. Is there any recourse for the public, for people who have been harmed by some of these things that are obviously clearly overreach?
Yes, and I think especially with like small businesses, for instance, where he has put in place restrictions on businesses where, restaurants and bars, for instance, where he has said that you have a capacity limit, whereas in Walmart, you don't have a capacity limit. They're both public places. They're similarly situated businesses, and he's treating them differently, which my opinion is that violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. He's not granting equal protection of the laws to small businesses and to these large corporate organizations, which are basically allowed to operate without any kind of restriction other than, they've got masks in place.
Right.
So I think,
you-
there are violations there.
What do you see down the road for possible litigation with regard to these things?
Well, there's the equal protection issue. There is a possible due process issue, although that's a lot harder to show because you actually have to show what right or what property was deprived when you talk about due process, whereas equal protection doesn't require that you show that. You just required to show that similarly situated people need to be given the same protection of law, which I think they've got a lot stronger case at. There's also the other issue, which is taking of property. And generally, what the government says when they put in place regulations is that regulatory takings are not compensable. And so if you abide by sanitary regulations in the kitchen at your restaurant, you're not required to be compensated for that. This is a little bit different in that he is actually removing the ability of these businesses to earn an income because he's limiting capacity, or he's limiting the number of hours, which he's now lifted. But at the same time, that goes well beyond what a regulatory taking would be.
Absolutely.
So interesting, David. Thank you. Excellent,
You're welcome.
excellent take on that. That's so good.
Yeah, I hope we see something in the courts because I think without having something like that, it's just going to happen again and again.
Right.
Yes, it definitely will.
It'll be
All right.
interesting to see also what happens across the nation because some places like California had such incredibly harsh and punitive mandates. I can't even imagine a restaurant in California what they could probably sue for.
Right. Well, and the restaurants out there, especially in California, they face the government argument that it's a reasonable exercise of police power. But when you look at the numbers in California, that goes against what's reasonable here because the states with some of the most restrictive, the highest numbers of this virus. So when you look at North Dakota and South Dakota, what effect has all of this clampdown had?
He's been watching our show, I think.
Yeah.
You've seen the curves.
we're of similar mind. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
indeed.
All right. So I have a question for you with regard to the legal process. Do you need to have damages to have standing to file a suit for equal protection?
You need a concrete and immediate injury. So, for instance, and just to use an example, the churches out in New York that challenged the governor out there in terms of his regulations really coming down hard on them. The Supreme Court said that when you have a First Amendment religious violation, they're presumed to be damages. And they had standing.
Okay.
They didn't have to show a monetary loss. An injury can be of very degree depending on what the business is and what they're looking at in terms of the implications for them. It really has to be an effect on the business itself.
Got it.
Excellent. And are you or people you know planning to file suit?
Yes, we're still working on that at this point in time and gathering together people to do that as well. It's getting to be a rather big job because there's a lot of businesses out there that have been really hurt by this.
Excellent. Well,
Wow.
excellent. Thank
Great
you, David, for
information.
being with us.
I really appreciate that.
Very helpful. I'm sure the viewers found it very interesting. I'm hoping we can have you on again, perhaps to talk about an actual suit. I'm
case.
going to cross my
Yeah.
fingers for that. All right. Thanks, David. We'll see you again.
Thanks so much. Yeah, he was
Thanks
great.
very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, next up, we are going to have Raheem Williams. We're going to be talking about things like BLM, social justice, President Brusciani, NDSU. It's Grab Bag.
when we come back.
Yeah, I was waiting for you guys to.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz, and our special guest, Raheem Williams. Raheem was on a couple weeks ago, I guess it was, via Zoom, and now we're delighted to have you in person, Raheem.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I love talking with you. Raheem and I spoke on this topic for, I don't know, a good deal of time on the phone, and I was fascinated, and I hardly even said 2 words.
I love that when that happens.
What we're talking about, what initiated the conversation that you and I had was a Facebook post about something occurring at NDSU with Bresciani, BLM, and appeasement of the desire for diversity, social justice, et cetera. So can you kind of lead us in with what was going on? And then we're going to go well beyond that.
So, as the country knows, 2020 was a very interesting year in terms of race relations. North Dakota was not spared this, and especially the NDSU community. Something terrible happened. There was a group chat, some students that apparently were saying extraordinarily racially derogatory things, just grossly ignorant things. And that group chat was exposed. That caused a huge campus uproar. And in response to that, Bresciani laid out a list of, I guess, initiatives. And I personally have mixed feelings about them. Like, I definitely think the whole idea of fighting and combating racism is extraordinarily important. I believe that to be a noble cause, and I think we all should. But at the same time, I'm apprehensive about his approach. What he wants to do is bring in third-party consultants to make sure the school isn't systemically racist. I think that right there alone is somewhat insulting.
Red flag.
I mean, it's insulting to the university community. I worked at NDSU. I never felt a single day that I was lesser because of my race. I loved the environment there, and it was a very multicultural environment. We had professors from all over the place. The department chair for the economics department is a Black African immigrant, a very great man. I love him to death to this very day. And I just don't like the idea of this school and my former university community being characterized as systemically racist. That doesn't sit well with me, especially because I believe this to be an anecdotal event.
And this was a chat that was private and it just was exposed.
Yes.
So it was not originally meant to inflame anybody. They were just talking amongst themselves, I'm assuming.
They were. That doesn't necessarily make it okay.
It doesn't excuse it, no, by any means.
But so the issue is now Dean Brashani is in a very, very difficult position, right? He's basically he's taken on the role of thought police. He's like, we're gonna bring in these third-party consultants who are going to overcharge. I'm almost guaranteed, because diversity training is a racket. There's so many studies that show it doesn't work and even in some cases backfire. Yet we keep seeing these chief diversity officers pop up in corporate America, and they pop up on our college campuses, and they have literally no effect on diversity. So what you're seeing is tokenism.
Right.
Right. And it's sad to say it, but it's true. And so the question is, and this is a question that the Black Lives Matter activists should be asking just as well as I am, is Dean Brashani serious about change, or is this just something being put forth to placate and appear to be less racist?
Don't you think that BLM, and I don't know, not the individuals, I don't know, but that many people in an organization like that don't actually care about the answer to that question, that they are perfectly fine if the president does what they want, even if it's only to try and just appease them, that they're satisfied because that empowers them and emboldens them to do more. So he played right to that. They don't actually care if he's trying to eradicate racism.
Is a little more power and a little more...
Well, there's always that aspect to every movement. We can get very cynical, right? Everybody's kind of trying to jock a little bit for clout. It's like, why do you have a TV show, Becker? Yeah. So it's like, we can always make these arguments. I'm going to be a little more sympathetic than that and say they do want to see real change. I'm going to be sympathetic. I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt, right?
Right.
So it's like, I want to give them that. But with that being said, I think Dean Brashani has put himself in an impossible position, where one of the things that's come out, he wants to mandate diversity training for every incoming freshman. Diversity training we just established don't work. This isn't my opinion. Please, viewers at home, go check out the Harvard Business Review. Go to Google Scholar. I don't have to make this stuff up. It's known that it doesn't work, and it can even create more hostilities, because it turns out when you sit people down and tell them they are internalized secret racists, they don't respond well to it.
You think?
Who would have known?
Yeah.
So, I'm very interested personally to see what these diversity courses look like. I might have to fly up and audit one. But right now, it's like you have two big issues. One is, what is this new thought policing going to look like? And how does that jive with the First Amendment and our free speech protections that are inherent? And is he going to put the university in a potentially compromising situation? Because that's already happened to universities across the country. They've had to settle expensive lawsuits for brushing up on free speech issues, because offensive speech is protected in this country.
As it should, yep.
So, and I'm definitely not trying to protect racists. My personal view on this is that there should have been more of a town hall environment where the offending students and the offended students were put in a room, maybe off camera, not to make some kind of kumbaya PR stunt, but to bring these parties together and actually break that isolation. Because in my experience, racism is almost always a function of isolation.
Right.
Well, I agree with you. I do have a bit of a problem, though, that what occurs off campus, and again, as abhorrent as racism is, whatever thought or hateful ideas someone expresses outside of the campus, as long as they're not bringing them into campus, and it's such a fine line that I'm trying to walk. But should the campus really be trying to control what someone says or does off campus? Because we can take it away from something that's as easy to hate as racism, and let's say that it's an opinion on Israel-Palestine, you know, and do we need to control what people say and do off campus? That's kind of another question, I suppose.
Well, as a government agency, and that is what a state university is, I would say that there is somewhat of an obligation to reflect the views of North Dakota, and I don't believe North Dakota to be a racist state. So as far as pushing back against racism, that's not the issue here. The issue is the applied functionality of what's happening. First and foremost, who are these consultants? Is this really going to work? And then not only is this going to work, are you setting the right precedent? Because right now, what you're telling students and what you've confirmed to these activists is that we're going to take responsibility for what anybody on this campus says at any time. And that's an impossible, it's like, that's a very dangerous position to put the university in. And I think right there, Dean Brashani is playing with fire. So I don't think there's anything wrong with condemning racism. I am very skeptical of these programs. I believe that the university is about to be taken to the woodwork. They're going to just, you know, run up and send them some fat bills, and they're going to be like, hey, look, we got some tokens and some fat, and, you know, we paid for this, and now everybody's not racist anymore, right?
So I've got another question or two with regard to NDSU, North Dakota, and then we want to talk a bit of a more larger scope. We're going to take a break here. We will be right back with more of Raheem Williams.
Howdy folks, it's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. We are with Raheem Williams. We have been talking about the situation at NDSU with Dean Bresciani, President Bresciani, and I guess BLM activists, and the concern about an expression of racism with some of the students and what he's going to do about it. Now, I'm going to pull up a graphic here that kind of leads into my last question to Raheem. From the College Fix, NDSU president apologizes to activist, offers plan of action to combat campus racism. The picture, of course, licking the boot. So, Raheem, my question is, does it appear, two-part question, does it appear that Bresciani is addressing the demands of the BLM activists? And if so, will that appease them, and will that be the end of the story?
So, as somebody who's somewhat activist-minded, there's no way you can hand an activist a win without emboldening them. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The question is, to what extent are we willing to actually dedicate public resources to this, and does anybody know what the heck they're doing? Because more advanced institutions, I guess, and even large corporations have absolutely struggled and failed. What we saw throughout the mid-90s, after a series of high-profile lawsuits, a lot of corporations, Fortune 500 corporations, almost every Fortune 500 corporation brought in diversity training programs.
Right.
They're still very not diverse. Like the representation of black men in management was basically unchanged. The integration of white females into management positions has been pretty much idle and at 29% since the year 2000. Nothing's changed in the last 20 years, and that's despite adding these chief diversity officers. That's despite spending more on consultants. So the question is, how much money are you willing to throw at this, and by what measure are we using to determine success? And I also want to take a step back, and this is kind of like just generally nationally in the diversity conversation. The question is, why don't these programs work? And I'm not a diversity expert, so I'm going to be honest, it's 110% my opinion. There is empirical literature out there that supports the notion that it does not work, and there's plenty of it. But my opinion on to why it does not work is because what the language of diversity has been turned into. It's not diversity of thought they seek.
Yep.
We know that because of how conservatives and libertarians and anybody who isn't left or far left is treated on a college campus.
Yep.
So what they're looking for in terms of diversity is sexual gender diversity and racial diversity. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But the question is, how do you pursue those things without creating what I would consider to be almost racist preferences? How do you go to a school like NDSU and you say, you know what the problem is? There's too many people of race A and not enough of race C. And how do you express that without inherently implying a racial preference, which is inherently racist? And as long as the language of diversity is basically a synonym to the progressive left, especially to mean not white,
right,
or cisgendered Anglo-Saxon, you're always going to have pushback. You train these kids to think critically, and it worked. They figured you out.
I've got a little anecdote for that. A few years ago, I was watching, for some reason I caught a minute of it, of the Thanksgiving Day parade. And there was a band, and they sounded great, and they looked great. The entire band were black kids, African Americans from, I think it might have been New York, doesn't matter. But the announcer was commenting on the band and said, "Oh, the pageantry, the diversity." I'm like, diversity is not another word for black.
Right?
So you hit the nail on the head with that.
I always love it. I make the joke. I was like, do you ever think there's somebody sitting in a like African boardroom or something in Nigeria, like in Lagos, being like, there's not enough white people here.
Right.
It's like, that's a uniquely Western thing, right? And it's so bizarre because, like I said, I would never go to Atlanta and be like, you know what the problem with this place is? There's too many black people. Nobody would say that without being condemned as a racist, but for some odd reason, it's perfectly fine to come to North Dakota and make that argument in places like it. And that never sat well with me. So the issue isn't, oh, let's go get X percent of this race and this many gays and all that kind of stuff. That's not what you should be seeking to do. The idea here is that that everybody should feel that they could come to North Dakota and succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt when I got here, and that's what motivated me to come onto the show. I do not believe and don't have no misillusions about it. I have experienced racist episodes here, but I do not believe that to define the population at large.
Right.
I've definitely had far more encounters of generosity by far in my experiences here in North Dakota, and I consider this place to be, I'm not even sure if it's a second home, maybe it's my primary home, who knows. I love it here, I do.
No, I don't think there's systemic racism in the state of North Dakota. I mean, I don't know how you can
There's
claim
always
that.
going to be, Kate, as an economist, you know there's always going to be unemployment. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at the problem, there's always going to be unemployment to some degree. There's always going to be poverty to some degree. There will always be hate to some degree, and there will always be racism to some degree. When I was in, when I was in medical school in Jamaica, and I was down in Sav-la-Mar, I experienced a little bit of racism down there for being white. It seems weird, but it's true. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, there are always going to be some people, whether from, by example, isolation, whatever it is, that are going to have these thoughts that are not accepted in an enlightened society. And we have to understand that it'll never be 100% eradicated.
I deal with this. I deal with racism regularly. Just last week, I was viciously attacked online for speaking out about the Senate race in Georgia. I call Kelly Loeffler a token. She was picked over Doug Collins, in my opinion, to appeal to suburban white women. Everybody plays this game. Republicans like to play in denial that they don't play the identity politics game. They do, they do. Everybody plays this game, and I just called it how I saw it. I was like, it didn't work. And this spawned somebody kind of to my inbox and started just dropping N-bombs, cursing at me and my wife, and I just laughed. And this brings me to my next point. Any people of color that are watching this, you will encounter racism, you will encounter hate. And hate is exactly what it is. They want to rob you of your happiness. Don't give it to them. They want to rob you of your dignity, your sound mind and judgment. Don't give it to them. The one thing racists hate is to see happy, successful people of color. So I will continue to be a happy, successful person of color.
Well done and well said.
Yeah.
Perfect, Raheem. That was awesome. What a
That
great
was
finish,
fantastic.
too.
So, Raheem, we're going to go out on that note because that was pretty solid. We're going to quit while we're ahead. I'd love to have you back on. I know there's a million things we can talk about, one of which may very well be talking about soon, which is pension reform. We'll have you on for a host of things. So thank you once again.
It's a
Always
pleasure to be
appreciate
here.
you,
We really
Raheem.
appreciate
Always
it.
appreciate you. All right, hang with us. We are going to be coming back and talking about, are we talking about brain food?
It's mailbag? No,
It's mailbag.
It's mailbag. It's mailbag.
It's mailbag. I'm here for the ride, folks. I'm here for the ride.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boston breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather, like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef in all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Kohler Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back, folks. This is Still No Apologies, your favorite show.
Our favorite show.
It's definitely my favorite show that I'm on.
Mine too, and the only one.
Yes.
So we're doing mailbag, and we've got a really nice mishmash today. I'm going to have to go and look that up and use that on
Mismatch?
brain. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so we've got a variety of different mail to show you today. We're going to start with a Facebook post that came in, and I like this one. This is pretty cool. This says, talk about the issues with unemployment and why it's taking so long to implement the extension and how people are having their utilities shut off because of the wait. Wow. I didn't realize that was even happening until I got that note. So apparently people are having a problem with getting some help in a timely manner.
It
kind of caught me off guard too. I didn't even realize that was...
I'm caught off guard because I know that people were getting $600 per week in their unemployment on top of their normal unemployment.
Right.
And then it stopped, but then I think it went through, didn't it? The $300 an extra week. And now tonight I heard Biden say it's going to be $400 per week. So I don't know about shutting off utilities. For one thing, I don't think in North Dakota you can shut off utilities in the winter.
I would hope not.
Yes, and so we would have to reach out to that person.
We have to do some research on that one, honestly, because I didn't
get specifics and all of that. That whole unemployment thing is a what's the word I'm looking for? A morass. It's a boondoggle. It's a morass. It's a
giant sinkhole.
So I don't know.
So okay, so
right.
I'm sorry we don't have any answers for you on that one, but so we're going to move on to the next one. This one is a little odd. I'm wondering, you contributed this one.
Yeah, they sent it to me at my at Becker at becknews.com. So COVID results as per your advice equals death. Now the black box in the picture I put on there because what you have is I'm going to assume it's the sender's dad or grandpa that's in the casket.
Oh.
So that's a coffin, a casket with someone in it, a deceased person. So the, put that back up there if you would. I want to, the COVID results as per your advice. So that equals death. So Mike, here's my thing. First off, I mean, I get it, and I have this tendency, right, to be dispassionate, to not be emotional. So I'm just going to address, not the picture, but the commentary. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that the COVID results per my advice is not to have mandates, government mandates. That's my advice.
Right. It's not to have masks, and it's not
to take precautions, and it's not to protect. It's not to avoid protecting those at risk. The thing is, my advice to not have a mask mandate has not been followed. We have mask mandates in the state. So a death that occurred could not have been because of my advice, because my advice
No one's
wasn't
taking
followed.
your advice.
And it's the most unfortunate thing, but deaths are going to occur regardless, and it's been shown. We talked about it ad nauseum.
Right.
Deaths are going to occur, illnesses are going to occur regardless of what government does. And so I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't think it's because of my advice.
All right, moving on. That was shocking.
Heavy.
Sometimes you get some heavy stuff and you get some surprising stuff too. So, all right, our next one is a private message that came to me, and I thought this was just so great because this person said during the legislative session you need 2-hour no apology shows nightly. Love this. So she's very happy with what we're doing. I just outed it. So it's a lady, and media never provides background, nitty-gritty, and principles. Budget limits. You're talking about budget limits. We're actually talking about budget limits on this
2
program.
hours, my wife would leave me, for sure. For sure.
It's a lot as it is. It's really, we've got, just so you know, we have regular day jobs and multiple jobs too between the two of us, like half a dozen or more of jobs between the two of us. So yeah,
2 hours.
2 hours would be much, but thank you so much for
Nice
writing
comment.
that anyway.
Very nice comment.
It was a very kind thing to say, so I thought that was pretty nice. All right, and now our last one says, I heard your quote about selling indentures. Remember that was on a show not very long ago.
Indentured servants, right, for 3 years, suggesting that legislators willing to borrow against the future should sell their services. And basically what I said should be sold for their services, and after 3 years, on the 4th year, they'd be relieved.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
The governor might just buy those indentures and truly own the legislature. I love our viewers are the most clever people ever.
That was a literal laugh out loud when I read that.
Anyway, when we come back with you again next time on Beck, join us because we will talk about firearms on this program. Thank you for watching.
Next up, No Filter with Debbie. Catch you next time.